Hi, this is Angelina Asante. Welcome to another episode of The Healthy Hypochondriac. Today we have my friend Sally, who is a retired teacher and librarian. And actually, this is a big day for me because this is the first time I've seen my friend, even though I've known her for years. This is the first time I've seen her. I've never seen her before. Now, can you talk about why I've never seen you before, Sally?
Well, that's a really good question. First of all, you look great. I'm glad to see you. I have generalized anxiety disorder plus depression. Only 50% of people usually have a combination of both. Along with that, I have something called social anxiety, where it's difficult for me to be around large crowds. I can get the feeling that people are staring at me and judging me. It sounds strange because I was a teacher and a teen librarian and a reference librarian, and I worked with people all the time, but I felt confident and I knew what they expected of me. With social anxiety, especially around people that you don't know, you're very paranoid. And even if you have a conversation with somebody, you go home later wondering, does that person think what I said was okay? It's very hard. If you're walking to a room of strangers, you just basically feel like folding in and you just don't feel comfortable. So I have known you for a long time. You're a good friend of mine, but you have never seen me. Mostly because you live in Florida and I live in Maine, but also we could talk all the time, FaceTime and everything, but I just don't allow it. So this is the first time because I feel that you're not a person that will judge me, and I feel that no matter what, you'll still be my friend.
Absolutely.
But I don't feel that way about 99.9% of people. So social anxiety is just feeling very self-conscious in situations where you do not have control and you're worried about judgment. That's what it means to me. I want to be very careful that I'm not giving a formal definition. You asked me what it means to me, and that's my response.
Well, I will say this. I'm thrilled to see you. It's so nice to see you after all these years because we do talk all the time and you are a good friend of mine. And I know somebody listening might say, well, this is a very strange friendship. But when I have a question or a concern, you are the first person I call because I do rely on your judgment with a lot of situations, social situations and whatnot. And
well,
also,
that's very nice.
You're a retired librarian. I'm a writer. So this is a friendship I definitely am glad I fostered because I get so much good information from you when it comes to being a storyteller. Now, when I was telling somebody today that I was interviewing you and this was the topic, this person who I'm very close to also said, oh, I have that. And I said, really? I had no idea you had that. So how many people have this and maybe it hasn't been diagnosed yet? Do you think that there's a lot more people out there that don't know why they're struggling?
Well, if we're talking about general anxiety disorder, that along with post-traumatic disorder are two of the, what's the word? They're the mental illness that is most prevalent. It's two of the top mental illnesses, or I should call them disorders. So many, many people have it. I don't know what the percentage is, but it's very high. They have some sort of generalized anxiety disorder, people who are diagnosed with it. So there's a large population of people that have it, and many people don't even know they have it. Angelina, I did a fair amount of research on this from reliable websites before you called me, so I feel confident with that answer.
Okay. And let me ask you, if somebody's listening to this right now saying, I wonder what the symptoms are, can you kind of give us some background on some warning signs to look for?
Well, what I was going to talk to you about today was generalized anxiety disorder, primarily hypochondria, because social anxiety is separate from the hypochondria. Okay. So can we talk about hypochondria?
Sure. That's something I have a little experience with.
Yes, I know. So you're going to be right on the ball with this one. Um, Hypochondria was previously and sometimes, wait a second. It is now called, oh my gosh, I'm looking at my notes. It's what was previously called hypochondria and hypochondriasis. It's not called hypochondria as much anymore in the, it's called the Diagnostic and Related History. That's the type of book that they use, called the DMV, for mental illnesses and how to define them. It's now called health anxiety. It's now called health anxiety, but it
I
is
didn't
still called. Yeah,
I
go
didn't
ahead.
know that. So is this a term now that doctors are using? This is how they're diagnosing people with
This
health
this
anxiety?
is this is the official term, and I don't know when it started, but it's official term. So if you're talking about hypochondria, they still use that, but in the official mental illness handbook that your doctor will have on his shelf or her
Okay.
shelf, it's called, whatever I said it was, health anxiety. Here's how you can tell. First of all, you have to have it at least 6 months. You constantly worry about your health. You're frequently checking your body for signs of illness, such as lumps, tingling, or pain. Mine started with tingling in my hands.
This is me.
Obsessively looking at health information or the internet or the media for reassurance. I had a great big thick American Medical Association book. It was thick. It was about 5 inches thick. And when I got hit with the worst bout I ever got hit with of, we'll call it hypochondria, I would study the book every night. I would write what I thought I had. And then my husband would have to bring it into the doctor to see if I had it. And some of the diseases women couldn't even have.
Oh my
And I
gosh.
would still. So he would have to go in. That's a whole nother story. My husband ended up hiding the book.
Oh my gosh. I have to tell
Um,
you, I actually bought Grey's Anatomy. People think that's just a
oh yeah.
TV show. I actually bought that
Hmm.
book and I got rid of
I
it
know
a
the
couple
book.
months ago. I donated it because I'm like, I don't need this around the house. And it's funny, when I got diagnosed with cancer, my oncologist is like, you could go on the internet and research this. And I said, no, thanks. Like, I didn't think that was a good idea for me because I know my own brain and how it works. And I was like, I don't need to be filling it with any other garbage. I just need to just focus on what the doctor's telling me. So I
That's a
guess,
really healthy strategy.
yeah, especially for me, because it's really easy to go overboard. You listened to that podcast with my father, who was told his whole life he was a hypochondriac, and then it
Yes, I
wound up
did.
he had this very serious disorder. So I think that's the problem. Sometimes people have actual things wrong with them and that they're not diagnosed, and they kind of feel like they're crazy. And sometimes people really do have a legitimate, I guess I guess asking, as somebody who's, I kind of joke about being a hypochondriac, but basically, even with me, I went to my doctor and said, hey, I think there's something wrong with me. And they told me that I had an issue with my heart. And then I actually had cancer, and they were so focused on my heart, they weren't paying attention to what I was telling them. So, I mean, I kind of like made a
Exactly.
joke out of it in my cancer book, but do you have any advice for people? Like, I guess, where do you draw the line with this?
With what? With the
with with doing like a self-diagnoses. I mean, if you're worried about being a hypochondriac and or having health anxiety, like, where do you draw the line? Because it seems like it could be very unhealthy very quickly to continue with this line of thinking.
it hits you. It hits you like a brick wall. You're going along doing your thing, and all of a sudden you get hit, and it takes you over. The first thing I think you need to do is contact your doctor and tell them what's going on. And the next thing you need to do is you need to find a very excellent. I had a nurse practitioner, that I went to that had a psychiatrist degree, and she could, I'm going to use the word dole out, but she could give you medication. I went to her for 3.5 years. 3.5 years. One of the reasons why I went to her was also related to my job. That was after the first hit. I won't go into that right now, but you have to get a really good person to talk to. A good person to talk to. And for me, medication works. I was recently put on a combination depressive and anxiety combo medication. And my husband says I act just like when we were first married, as far as like my behavior and wanting to have fun and wanting to have a sense of humor and all that sort of thing. You need to address it immediately. You need to go to your medical doctor, and you need to find, and that's the tricky thing, a really good psychiatrist. I found a wonderful nurse practitioner that her specialty, she had gone on farther in her medication into psychiatry. That's what I would recommend. And I would start to exercise if you can do it, but it takes you over so much that I could sit on hours studying my medical encyclopedia. That's go to the doctor, go to a psychiatrist, nurse practitioner, and you get on medication. I'll just tell you point blank, I'm not recommending this for anybody. I had to go on to Xanax immediately, and that helped me. But Xanax, after 3 months, you get addicted to it. The doctor never told me that.
Oh my gosh.
And I'll tell you something, Angelina. I'll tell you, I was up to 10, 12, 15 Xanax a day.
I have
And
a
then,
lot of friends who are on that, so I didn't know that, and I wonder if they also don't know that that's highly addictive.
well, I was taking 10 to 15, Angelina, which is a huge dose.
Yikes.
And he continued to subscribe them for me because I was in absolutely horrendous shape. And I just couldn't even. One day I was working as a librarian in a high school, and I couldn't cross the threshold into the library. I got frozen in the hallway, and my assistant had to come out and get me because I stood in the hall, and it was just before school was starting, and the kids were all in the hallway, and they just saw me standing there. I just froze, and Jean came out, my assistant. She said, "Sally, are you coming in?" I said, "Yes." She had to take me by the arm and lead me in the library. Well, I'll tell you something. Once I got into the library, I was fine because that was like my home. That was where I felt
Wow.
safe. So what happened after 3 months, I read about it. So I cut it way down. I cut it way down because I don't want to be addicted to anything.
Right.
And, but that did the Xanax immediately. I'm not recommending that to anybody. Don't get it off eBay or whatever. Go to your doctor. My doctor that I have currently now cannot handle any of this. He just knows nothing. I mean, he knows to give me Xanax, but he knows nothing else. So find a nurse practitioner. And I got to tell you, surround yourself with a couple of friends that you can talk to about it and aren't going to leave you. That's what I say.
Well, can I ask you a question about how, because everything seems like it's been amplified the last year and a half with this COVID. How has your anxiety disorder been in the last year and a half? Has it gotten worse, or are you handling it now?
I no longer work. I'm no longer work. I had to stop because of my rheumatoid arthritis that I got a few years back. I don't have to be around anybody. So it didn't bother me. It's really funny because no matter what kind of shape I'm in, if a stressful situation occurs, I can handle it. I can handle it. If I was in the middle of a terrible problem with my anxiety, if it had really kicked up and, somebody needed help and they called me, I would go help them. But I was reading, Angelina, it's funny that you mentioned this because I was reading about, they say certain personalities are apt or are possibly more capable of getting hypochondria. And one of it is a controlling personality.
Interesting.
Do you have a controlling personality?
I would say with some things, sure.
Okay.